understand correctly, your foundation disputes the established mainstream scientific understanding of HIV and AIDS. Why is that, and what prompted you to set this foundation up?
Right. Well, for 24 years now, we have been challenging this hypothesis that HIV causes AIDS with leading scientists around the world.
So it doesn't make sense that they use an immune suppressor to kill an immune suppressor.
Has shed light on all the major issues that challenge HIV as the cause of AIDS and AIDS as a sexually transmitted disease.
I just can't believe with all the technology we have today, all that millions of dollars hasn't found us something a lot better, you know?
Just like with any disease or any ailment, you know about it, you hear about it, but it doesn't really hit you hard enough until it happens either to you or someone that you deeply care about.
Losing a lot of friends from it.
Our beloved cousin Hector Acosta, who passed away from the HIV/AIDS in June.
My friend passed away with HIV.
I have several friends who have AIDS, so...
After my cousin recently just was diagnosed with AIDS this past summer, a little too late to really realize it was really HIV. It really kicked in at home.
One of my best friends was diagnosed.
She's been living with AIDS for 18 years.
He is my uncle, John. He passed away when I was around 10.
My parents died of AIDS when I was about 6 years old.
I've been HIV positive for 22 years.
What affects me is how people see it. Only people that are gay get it. No, it's not people that are gay get it.
It's everybody. And the whole world should be aware of it, that it's just not towards gay people.
She's a straight woman, 3 kids, 3 beautiful kids and a grandbaby.
And it doesn't matter what race you are.
Because HIV doesn't discriminate against sexual orientation, religion, color, ethnicity, race, anything.
We all know that it's there. It's like that. It almost feels like it's that anvil above the head that you don't want to fall.
It affects everyone, I feel like, and most people have a connection to it. And
it's a vicious, nasty disease that can kill.
Unfortunately, there's treatment for HIV. In the beginning, there wasn't. These denialists who said that HIV is not a sexually transmitted disease, or HIV does not cause AIDS, you don't really die from AIDS.
So it is always a constant fear. Even though people don't want to talk about it, everyone knows that it's there.
And absolutely, of course, the HIV is a virus that's passed from person to person, which can cause AIDS later on, an AIDS diagnosis.
There were no drugs at the time, so people were trying anything to stay alive, and some were going the holistic way, thought, okay, I'll eat healthy, I'll do this and do that, and are not here today.
And my life was completely changed the day that I was diagnosed with HIV when I was only 21 years old.
I'm 15 years old. I was born with HIV.
I contracted the virus through my husband's lack of honesty and his irresponsible, risk-taking sexual behaviour.
The hardest part about being diagnosed was telling my mother the news, because it was just something that I knew it was going to be hard for her to accept. She was just getting used to me being gay, and now I had to tell her that I was dying.
And there's so many things that go through your head when you're first diagnosed.
A disease that we didn't know what it was, and young men, mostly men at that time, were dying. 23, 24 years old, and they have a disease which nobody could diagnose.
They told me that I had 7 to 9 years to live at that point. I've been living with HIV now for a little over 23 years.
After I found out that Magic Johnson was not cured, I went into research about the virus and got really afraid of what it does to your system.
Because it's in the blood, and the blood has to go everywhere in order for a human to survive, so it goes everywhere else. What happens when the virus infects the cell and it starts to replicate and starts to grow more and more, and it starts to kill some of the very important immune cells. then you can detect this virus in the blood. And this is called viral load. So we want to know how much virus is present in this person versus this person, and that's called load.
I seeked out other ways of dealing with it, maybe naturopathic ways. I Googled cure for HIV. There are people that don't believe that HIV exists. They're called HIV denialists. They literally don't believe that HIV causes AIDS.
I'm talking today to the Austrian-German biologist Christel Meyer, who has proven that the HIV virus does not exist. Christel, could you tell us something about your qualifications, please?
I studied at the University of Marburg in Germany, and I studied chemistry, biochemistry, biology, and I did my scientific work in medical microbiology concerning virus.
HIV does not cause AIDS. I'm telling you, it does not cause AIDS, and I'll explain it too.
Now I've kind of become someone who doesn't really accept the whole story of HIV causing AIDS, and I have some questions, needless to say.
AIDS, as it's called, has remained restricted to the high-risk groups. It hasn't spread as a heterosexually spread disease.
I don't know what the tests mean, and I think no one else knows what the tests mean. I've never seen any evidence that what these tests purport to show, they're actually showing, namely the presence of a virus, the presence of an exogenous virus. I really would like to see the electron microscopic data of this, and apparently there is none. There is none where you've done a rigorous isolation protocol.
All kinds of diseases started coming into the AIDS family faster than anyone should have been comfortable with, really. To go from 2 or 3 to go to 30 in a few years was like somebody should have said, hey, there's something wrong here, and it's got to be financial. Things don't happen that fast in science.
And this research brought you to look at the HIV virus, and you discovered there is no such thing. Is that correct?
The contagious HIV hypothesis is the biggest scientific medical blunder of all time. And ever since that time, we have the National Institutes of Health, the Centers for Disease Control, and virtually every other health organization around the world has clicked its heels, saluted, and marched off to war against HIV, even though there was no evidence that AIDS, first of all, was contagious, sexually transmitted, or caused by any infectious pathogen.
Believe me, I want it to not exist as much as anybody else.
Growth of this virus is that it must enter the cellular genome or the cell's DNA and become a part and parcel of that DNA. And once that happens, it just doesn't come out. It continues to integrate in more places in the DNA. In other words, it disturbs our own DNA, our own genome. And when it does that, then multiple other genes try to compensate for this disruption, and it gets more and more complicated.
I didn't want to take medication.
I didn't do any of the meds in the beginning. The doctors wanted me to do the AZT right then and there, and I said no.
Well, John, the question that I wanted to ask you is that if you're rejecting conventional methods of treatment, which you say are still strong, what sort of alternative forms does your foundation have on offer?
Well, conventional treatment has actually caused the death of a whole generation of young gay men in America when they were on the high doses of AZT. That is well documented. Not one single young man or woman, and there were a few women, who took the high doses of AZT has survived. Many, many others have survived who haven't taken the antivirals, and many have survived who have taken antivirals at times to damp down what essentially is an immune suppression for many, many different reasons. So it's extremely important to be challenging this hypothesis, which, of course, is tied up with hundreds and billions of thousands of dollars of international money, which have led to absolutely no results.
I would have believed anything I saw to avoid taking these horrible medications that had such horrible side effects that I was reading about.
The side effects in the past, it was nausea, and it was a lot of diarrhea.
So I looked into this HIV denialism, and they were telling me that you can take care of your HIV naturally. You don't need to take medication. You can take care of it through proper nutrition and health. They don't believe that HIV causes it. They believe that it's a lifestyle, that the lifestyle you choose slowly degrades your immune system.
Have a high virus load, then now we have drugs that can make the virus load go down in most people.
Around 2000, they came out with something called the cocktail, a combination of medicines that actually stop the HIV from reproducing itself.
If you don't use those combination drugs, then the virus continues to increase, and of course it continues to destroy your immune system, and it continues to spread throughout the body. Wherever the blood is going, the virus goes there.
But I went on HIV forums where other people who are positive go to, and there was especially one person that I was pointed to. He was an HIV denialist, and he was HIV positive. And over the course of, 7 to 10 years, he chose not to take medication, and, he was just getting colds and then getting over them.
It's all based on your T cells. So a normal person has 1,400, they're called T cells, and they're fighter cells. It's like you have a wall of them in your body that fight off any kind of illness or disease.
There are drugs and there are medications that can reduce the virus load. And when the virus load is reduced, then the immunity will automatically increase. So these two things go hand in hand. The virus load goes up, immunity goes down. Virus load is down, immunity goes slightly up, not with the same rate, but it goes up.
He would get the flu just like anybody else, and then his immune system would take care of it. And he went and got his blood drawn and his labs done, and he watched his T cells decrease, and he watched his viral load increase, and he still stuck to his guns that he wasn't dying. Every time he'd get a cold and get over it, he's like, look, I'm totally fine. I'm just like a normal person. I'm taking care of myself. My labs don't mean anything. And then you see his name in memoriam section, which was, to remember people who died.
Medications that we have right now, they can get rid of the virus that is free of the cell, but not go inside and kill the virus which is sitting inside. So that's the reason that it is very hard to get rid of the virus completely. Nevertheless, the virus load does come down. When we talk about the virus load, we are only talking about the virus that is sitting, that is in the blood, free of the cell. But anything which is associated with the cell, which is integrated with the genome, doesn't come off. And then even in the presence of the drugs, it continues to replicate slowly, very slowly.
But after seeing his personal story and seeing, someone who was an HIV denialist die of AIDS, that's when I was like, okay, it's time to listen and take my medication.
But people who have been taking medication, they are fine, they are okay.
Because, I've lived with it now for over 23 years, but I've overcome it. I've actually become stronger from it. I've had an extraordinary life, and these people that deny it, they need to really look at the facts. and be a part of the solution instead of just pretending that it's not there. Because that's not going to help people like myself and the millions of others who are infected with this disease.
Cure means that you get rid of HIV from the body. We don't have any such thing at the moment.